So please welcome Karen Docherty to the show. Welcome, Karen,
It's lovely to be here.
all the way from Scotland.
Yes,
Amazing.
and my little Scottish accent.
I love it. And think like having my done my rabbit hole work on search on you and learning the last few days preparing for this. And it's amazing that we can connect when we're this many miles away and you're getting ready for bed. And I basically just woke up and started my day. And it's just, yeah, it's just like a blessing to have this connection and being able to share you with my community and get excited for them to meet you and know what I have learned from you. And I get excited because I know there's going to be more that I uncover. But if let's start, I always love to start because what I've learned from you is that you've basically learned since you were three, had this like gift and you realized it so soon. But I want you to go back to kind of, I always talk about breadcrumbs, but when you're picking up the breadcrumbs, my one vision of you is with you and your mom and you're in the car and you're 3 years old and you drove by a cemetery and you were asking her like, why are all these people here? We go back there and then kind of take it with your grandmother? And because it's like when people say, well, we are all psychic and not everybody's a medium, but you're both. And it's so fascinating to know that you had that awareness at that young age. It's amazing. And I have two girls and I was putting my mind into that thinking, when I was driving them around at three, like if they said that to me, I'd be like, what?
Yeah.
So take it up, take it from here where you uncovered your magic.
Yeah, I think that when I was that young, obviously I'll talk about that experience, but I didn't realize that that was an experience until later. So it's almost like in hindsight, you kind of realize, well, that wasn't really the normal thing to say at that age. But when it was happening to me, it was normal, it was natural, and it was just, I just said what I seen. So for me, it was more like a question, a normal question that somebody would ask. And at the time, I remember seeing all these people and realizing actually, oh, it's really busy there. It's a busy place. And asking my mum, why are all these people there? And she looked at me as if, I don't know what you're talking about, and kind of dismissed it in a way that you would with child's play, just a child talking. And then I remember the thought very, very vividly and clearly of, I wonder if I'm buried in there. I wonder if I'm there. And I think that that was the part of it for me later when I realized all of these thoughts. That was when I kind of thought, wow, 3 years old and kind of having these things come up. And then as I kind of grew up, five, six, seven, and maybe up until about 10, I used to see people in my grandmother's house quite often and say, oh, the lady's in the kitchen. And she would say, oh, the dead don't harm you, don't worry. And she would always make it very natural, very normal for me. And I used to know that they're from the other place. I didn't know where. I didn't call it a spirit world at that point, and I didn't say there were ghosts or spirit beings. I just knew they were from the other place. It's like inherently I knew that we come from there and we come here and then we go home. So it was a very, very natural thing. But fast forwarding on in life to my teenage years, I still didn't know I was a medium. I wouldn't have called myself a medium. I just knew that I would pick up messages for people and pick up communication and pick up on people's, friends' grandmothers beside them and things like that. And as I kind of grew through that and it became more intense, that's when I realized that actually not everybody is receiving this, and this is definitely a different thing.
Right. But when you're in your teenage years, and I have teenage girls, and you're experiencing that with your friends, do you start closing off and start thinking you're different and closing in, or do you keep the gifts going?
I think you do a bit of both. I mean, I feel that when I was going through it, it was lonely. It felt like you can't just explain this to someone, like there's no words. I couldn't probably articulate it properly even at that point and explain it in a way that someone would understand. So you do feel like you're lonely. And I think most mediums would say the same. It was almost like you have family around you, you have friends. I mean, I had a good family support network and everything, but I didn't talk to anyone about it properly because they wouldn't have understood. So you go through that life feeling very lonely and feeling very different. And it's almost like you're watching your life unfold from the outside view, but you're living it at the same time. So it's quite confusing. So in that sense, I did feel different to friends at that age. I did feel like even though I'd done, the normal teenage things, went out with friends and such like, I always felt on the outside, and I realize now that that was more because I was trying to harness these highly sensitive feelings and intuitions and spirit communication, and really trying to live a normal, what you would call normal life at the same time. And I just think it was very hard to do both.
Right. And now thinking of time and where we're at now in 2025 versus back then, it's so much more acceptable now. Back then, I would think it was definitely more like what are you crazy? But you did have a
Hmm.
grandmother that was tapped into that. Will you explain how that, do you feel like that came from your family, like it was a generational thing that
Yeah,
you adapted to or adopted or
yeah,
came
definitely.
in with?
Yeah, I think that it's always in the lineage of your family somewhere, and it might skip generations and such like, but usually there is a trace of it within your family. And because when I was so little, I remember like watching my grandmother at our table, our dinner table, doing tea leaf readings for people. And I must have only been 3 or 4, and I remember watching her tell the lady, turn the cup 3 times, and then she would read the tea leaves. And I have that memory of her, but she didn't work as a medium. She didn't like kind of go out and say she was a medium. But her sister was. Her sister used to serve churches, spiritualist churches and things as a medium. So she definitely knew about it. And my grandmother always spoke from a spiritual point of view. Even though she was brought up with religion, she always spoke about spirit and the afterworld, the afterlife. And so I think that at least gave me comfort that what I was feeling or what that knowing was, she's seen it. And she used to tell my father all the time, oh, Karen brings the spirit people in with her. I remember her saying that numerous times. So she did spot that within me, and that kind of gave me a point of contact with it. And my mum was very aware of psychic things as well, and she liked all of that, but she wasn't a medium. So there just was a difference. I feel like my grandmother embodied it. She knew it. She could feel it, even though she didn't work with it, but she can understand it in me. So that made it easier.
Right. When you speak of medium and versus a psychic, and I was listening to an episode that you recorded on, everyone is psychic. We're all born that way. We all are beyond our powerful beings, and we have no clue of how powerful we are. And I so agree with that. And then when you bring in the mediumship, that's just something that is just a gift. How can you explain that?
Yeah, so psychic is, like you've just explained, something that we all come here with because we come from the spirit world and we're born here into the physical. So we all come with that kind of mind to mind communication that we would have in the spirit world. The spirit world is a world of thought. It's a mind to mind communication. So we come here with that, and that's what we would call our intuition, sixth sense. People get a hunch about something. That's your psychic intuition. And people can develop that to different levels. Some people will develop it to work in that field as a psychic. Most people will develop it for their own needs, their own intuition, their own inner gut feelings. And that's why people can pick up, oh, I just thought about you and you phoned, that kind of thing. That's all psychic. But mediumship is about a different ability. It's about a connection to the other world. It's where a medium can speed up their vibrational energy and frequency to meet with that of the spirit. And the spirit world is a very fast place vibrationally and frequency wise. So it's almost like a blending takes place in the middle. They slow down, I speed up, and then that blending is there. And I don't know why, I mean, really, I know why people are born with it because there's got to be mediums so that we can kind of prove that there's a spirit world to give people comfort and healing and all of that. But I don't know why you get chosen to do it, or I don't know why some people can and can't. All I know is that I'm very blessed to have that ability, and it's something that I live by every single day. Like, I don't know where I would be without it because I wouldn't be me, because it is a vocation, it is a purpose. And I think if you speak to mediums, they don't just decide, oh, I'm going to be a medium and I'm going to, that's what I want to do for my work. It is something that is there and you're born with it, much like a singer or an artist or, musician.
Right. Right. So when you talk about your vibration or your frequency gets to that level and you connect with that spirit world and it's just so fast. And now I feel like the vibration and the frequency of the planet is shifting so much. Is it easier now? Like are people becoming like I know that when I connect with my dad because he passed away, like I can connect with him, but I definitely it's been a practice. But I know when I can connect, and I usually do it through writing. And but then now I'm like walking the dogs in nature and I can connect and I can feel that. But it's been a practice. But do you feel that now in your practice, in your work, do you feel that is there a difference in the frequency in the earth that you feel is more connected to that level of frequency where they are with the spirit world?
I don't feel so. I feel that the frequency of the earth is obviously a physical thing, right? So it's to do with the earth. But I feel that any practice you do, so like you said, you're feeling like your connection's coming in a different way and it's maybe a bit easier now or it's coming at different times. That's more about you evolving your connection. So that would be about your meditation, your practice, we have to learn that to connect with spirit, whether it's our spirit, our higher self or that of the spirit world. We have to know where to go to find that. And it's really in a place where you're very centered and you can go into that quiet place of you. And that's where you will learn to develop any link to the spirit world. So for what you were saying about walking in nature, that itself brings about a development because you're kind of meditating when you're out walking, even though you might not call it that. People think that meditation is about sitting in a quiet room and being still, and it's not. It can be walking in nature, being by the water, anything that kind of connects you with the earth and connects you with that spirit of things. And so when you do that more and more and more, you are developing your connection to your loved ones. And that's when your messages and your communication can come in so much easier.
Yeah, it's been amazing. And it's so cool to see the evolution and looking back at how I've developed it for myself. It's been so fun. And it's a feeling of knowing, and I've learned from you too, is like, they're there with you all the time. And it's where people have that feeling when they have a reading with you and you bring that person in and it's an interesting it's just knowing that it's a comfort. It's realizing that, we're just this little fractal of our soul that is in this body that is Karen and Ashley at this very moment, but there's so many more fractals of our soul happening right now in other dimensions and other planets. Can you explain how you can describe that? Like because you do mention a diamond, and I love that, and I've heard that before, but I love that because it makes people have a vision, like a visual of how their soul is just this little tiny, it's just your higher self and all the things and this all the angels but it's just so cool to know that this is just a little bit of me.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's hard, isn't it? You're right. To have a vision is so much easier in the human mind to understand it because really the human mind can't perceive the power of your spirit and can't understand. Your mind is there as a tool to keep you safe. So basically, what I mean by that is in life, your brain or your mind will give you answers that you need to make things logical and to give you answers to things and solutions and to help you through your life that way. But it will never really understand the power of the spirit. So, to understand that, we need to use things like visions so that our mind can see something that then we can understand. So, a diamond is a way that I like to describe that, where when people ask about reincarnation, for instance, oh, well, will I come back again and live another life? And I say, well, it doesn't quite work like that because your part of your spirit can come back. So let's say I live this life and then I go over to the spirit world. Karen she's done her life here. She's lived her physical life here. But my higher spirit, the big part of, the source of Karen, where Karen comes from, is huge. So yes, there could be another part of that that incarnates as someone else. And so it's not Karen that's incarnating, it's part of the higher self that's incarnating. So at the same time, then, if you think about it like that, there could be many different parts to your spirit incarnated somewhere else, but you're not going to know about it usually. I know you hear all of these things like there's two people with exactly the same name, exactly the same life, exactly the same amount of children, and all of these stories you hear. And I can't say that's yes or no. All I can say is there are parts of you that can incarnate in other lives as well, but we are just one facet of that diamond. So Karen, for instance, or Ashley is just one little part of that diamond right now. There's so much more to polish, there's so much more to evolve, and there'll be other emanations of that diamond coming as well.
Right. And it's all happening now because there's no time.
Yes, because time is a physical thing. Time is of this world. We put 24 hours on the clock. The sun comes up, it goes down, it's another day. Of course, in the spiritual realms, there is no time. There's nothing like that. So that's when I communicate with spirit, maybe doing readings, and I say to someone, let's say it's their father, your father's saying, not to be upset, live your life, because when you go there, it will be like nothing happened. It will be like you're back together in that moment, because in the spiritual side, there is no time. And the spirit world want us to live this life and have our time here so that we can evolve and we can do our things. And the minute we're back there, it's like we were never away. So we miss them and they miss the physical sense of their life, but not in the same way.
Right. And I was listening to this one interview where you were explaining. So, for example, my dad, he passed away 19 years ago. And I have since recently, but when I say recently, like the last, you know, 5 years, have really connected. But you had explained that when they do pass over, you get you've been communicating with them when they have feelings like they're kind of sad that they're not in their body anymore. They're grieving too. And I've never heard that before. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so I think that the kind of misconception is when we go to the spirit world, we're all happy, we know where we are, we're fine, we know that we've lived on. Now, whilst there's part of that that's correct, because we do know that we are home and we do then realize where we've come from and what this has all been about. So, yes, we have the piece of that. But that doesn't mean that a father in the spirit world isn't going to grieve for his physical life because he misses his daughter, or he misses a physical hug, or he misses his grandchildren, or just his life in general. We still have to go through the grief process of realizing that we are no longer physical, especially if someone passes suddenly. If someone passes with a heart attack and it's very sudden and it's very quick, then when that person gets to the spirit side, even though they're going to know where they are, because inherently we know that we are spirit the minute we cross over, we're still going to have to realize, oh, that's my physical life over. I didn't get a goodbye with my daughter or my wife or whoever it might be. And we have to come to terms with that. So there is still a grief, but it's not the same kind of grief that humans will experience here because we think we're never going to see them again, or that's the end and that's a definite thing. Let's say someone doesn't believe in the spirit world, they think they've lost that person forever. So that grief is different. And especially if it's like children and things, if I've worked with a lot of families that have lost children, and I think that's the hardest grief that anyone can go through, anyone. And mediums do try, like I will try with my work to help people and explain and hope that it brings comfort and hope that it brings that evidence for the person, but you can't take someone's grief away. But when I am working with the spirit world and with the family, I know that it's going to bring some form of healing for both sides. So the father in the spirit world is going to get that healing because he got to speak to his daughter again, and his daughter then has the knowledge that he's all right and that he's alive. So that gives him healing, and then the daughter here would get healing from knowing that her father was there. So it does give healing for both sides, but it can't take away grief.
No. How do you explain when, because my dad comes to me in my dreams a lot. And I was thinking, I was laying in bed actually last night and I had remembered a dream and I was like, oh my gosh, I keep having that dream and it's about my dad. How do you describe like where the dream world is in our spirit world?
So dreams, so there's two things. Dreams are dreams sometimes where our brain is like a computer and it's just kind of updating. We go to bed at night, our body needs to rest and goes to sleep, and the brain updates like a software on a computer. So it's updating lots of information all at once. And sometimes because of that, you'll get dreams that are very fragmented, don't make much sense. Things from 6 weeks ago can come into your brain at that moment in time. And that's a dream. And sometimes when you wake up, you'll try and make sense of it, and it's like, that just was just weird, right? So that's usually a dream. When it's the spirit world visiting, so like your dad coming, it's very different. So in a visit from the spirit world, you will know in that dream or in that visit that your loved one is no longer here. So you will recognize that they're from the spirit world, or you'll recognize that you've missed them or that they've been away, and that kind of feeling. That's a visit from the spirit world. And that's when you are blending with them and having that communication time. Now, to make it even more complicated, every night that we go to sleep, we go to the spirit world. We're just not conscious of it. So our body rests, our brain updates and does its job, and the soul or the spirit doesn't need to sleep. So we are actually in that moment with the spirit world. So sometimes when we wake in the morning, we know that we've been with our loved ones and we can't explain it, but we know that they've been there. Or some people say, I just felt my mum's presence, I knew she was there. But that is because we are with them every single night. And sometimes we're lucky enough to remember the feeling of it, or sometimes we're lucky enough to see it as a visit where the spirit person's been that strong that it has been like a visit, and they look amazing and they look well and they look so different maybe to the last time that they were here. So these are visits. Dreams do happen and we have to put it down to dreams, but visits are very different.
I've heard this before where as a medium, do you see when they come through like the best version of how they want it? Like if they passed away at 80 and they come through looking like they're 30, or do they have aged? How does that look for you and when you see that?
As a medium, when I'm working with spirit, they will show me things, they'll talk to me, they'll let me feel things. So more often than not, I'm feeling what they went through before the past, or they're showing me what they went through in the past, but they're also at the same time allowing me to feel where they are now. So it's a bit of a mixture for me, and it's not just about vision. But when they come through to their own family or their own loved one, usually they will look so much better than they did if they were unwell before the past, or if they were elderly. They'll come back looking younger or more vibrant. The energy is more vibrant. And it's really just to prove, look, this is good. I'm all good. Like there's no age in the spirit world. I've heard some mediums saying, oh, someone passed 20 years ago, they're 20 years older now. And particularly about children, I've heard mediums saying, oh, your little boy passed when he was 4. Well, he's now like 34. It doesn't work like that because there's no age in the spirit world. There's nothing physical to age. So it doesn't quite make sense. But the years can go by here. They don't go by in the spirit world. It's just the energy and the vibrancy of someone. So that's why when someone comes to visit you, usually you'll be like, wow, they looked amazing. And it's because you're picking up on that eternal energy.
Right. When little children pass away early, what have you gotten from that? Is that they came in to have your family learn a lesson? They had to do that for that time. How do you look at, people that, all of a sudden pass away, shouldn't have gone that early? Are there lessons involved? How do you see that spirit world work in that way?
That was a real conflicting question for me for a long time because I always would have said, I don't believe in the timing of it, meaning I don't believe someone's meant to pass at a certain age. I just believe that when your body breaks, gives up, breaks, or an accident happens, or something happens to the physical body, and it can't house the soul anymore, the soul has to go home. So that's always the way that I've seen it. But I have to say, over the years, there's been a couple of times, or maybe more than a couple, where I have felt, wow, they came here and they lived their full life and they done what they done and then they left. So I suppose I'm on the fence still a little bit about it. I think in the main, when people talk about accidents and things, if there's a terrible road traffic accident, And people will say, oh, that was meant to happen. No, I don't believe in that. I believe that that was an accident. I believe that's human. I believe that we can make mistakes or accidents can happen to us. I also believe that the way someone lives within their own body, health-wise, can, make or break that kind of thing. So I don't believe all of it's to do with the spirit world or all of it's already written before we come here. I believe that as humans, we do make choices, do things, get involved with things that can kind of change the outcome of things. But yes, there's a few occasions where I feel like someone has really came here and lived their full life and done what they needed to do.
Mm,
But like I say, I think it's dependent on the circumstance that I would say one or the other.
yeah. How do you, when you look at source, God, the universe, and then the angels and the spirit guides, and then higher self, give us the how you visualize or what you can explain how that, I don't want to say hierarchy because I know there's no hierarchy in the spirit world, but how all those play in the spirit world.
Yeah, I kind of look at it like levels. So I feel like we are meant to evolve. So when we are here, we evolve ourselves, we learn, we develop, we grow, we try to understand our spiritual existence, really. And not everybody does, and there's a lot that don't, but that's what kind of we're supposed to do is kind of understand ourselves and evolve from that and learn things. When we go over to the spirit world, I believe there's different levels there. So it'll depend on where we're at to where we go, if that's an easier way to put it. Now, when it comes to angels, higher beings, guides, helpers, all of that kind of thing, I believe that they're of the higher realms. They've already evolved. They're higher beings. So they've done their evolving, they've done their learning, whether it's been on the earth or not. They have evolved through the different levels in spirit. So guides and helpers, or what I would call your spirit team, they are the higher souls. They are the ones that have evolved and have wisdom and want to help you with guidance. Guardians, like some people say guardian angels or your own loved ones don't become your guides. They don't. It's a different thing. Your guides are assigned to you before you come here. So you'll always have that relationship with them. Your loved ones kind of become your guardians a little bit. They might give you a little bit of guidance or give you a little nudge in the right direction with things or let you know when it's the wrong direction. But then when you talk about angels or angelic beings, because obviously that's cultural as well, because not everywhere in the world would call an angel
Right.
an angel. So it's a cultural belief thing as well. But the higher beings from the higher realms, I believe, are universal and are there for the universe to help bigger things that are going on to, help with that kind of thing. And then some people will call spirit God. Some people will say, our Father. Some people will say God. Some people will say source. Whatever you call that source, that main part, I feel is what connects us all. And of course, that's the higher realms. So that connects everyone.
Right. But we're all one. You're me and I'm you.
Absolutely. And we're all so connected. And I think that realization, the human brain doesn't realize things that way. So again, that's about your own evolving, your own learning, your own development to understand that.
Right. And when you speak of spirit guides, guardians, have any of them ever been a human?
Absolutely. Yes, you will get guides that have walked the earth and lived before you and done their learning. I know, a couple of guides that I've met along the way, and I say a couple because we have a spirit team, and our guides will come and go as we need them for different things. And I know certainly one of mine that I met early on in my journey, Michael, his name is, and I know that he walked this earth, and I know that he was a musician. He played the violin and he was very talented and he passed away only in his 20s. And I know that he told me right at the beginning, I want to help you develop your abilities because I didn't get to do that when I was here. So that was about his development too on the other side, but also helping mine. So there are ones that will walk that have walked this earth, and then there's other ones that I know that I connect with in the spirit world in my team that have never walked this earth. They're just higher beings that have helped me with different areas of my mediumship.
And how do you connect with them? Explain, help people understand that. And when you say, I was listening to you about the red feather
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
that whole like so when you're connecting with Michael or the red feather, and you can explain that too to everyone, but how what are you doing to do that?
So for me, as a medium, I am when I go into my own space, which is meditation or just going into the quiet or going into an altered state, which is it's a bit hard to explain, but in mediumship, you can go into like an entrancement state, and that comes through development. And sometimes when I'm going into that deeper level of connection, then I feel my guides so much closer and have that communication with them. When I'm working doing readings for people, I'm not communicating with my guides. My guides will be there, but I'm not actively speaking to them because it's for someone else and it's my guides are for my development. So when I have a communication with my guides, it's usually about my own development, my own life, my own mediumship, that kind of thing. But anybody can learn to connect with the higher realms, their guides, their team, by developing their meditation and developing that link to their higher spirit, their own higher spirit first. And that, I guess, is what I would say to everyone is learn to feel that first. You're never going to connect with your guides and helpers if you don't understand what connection to the spirit is. And you must be able to connect with your own higher self first. And to do that, really, the practice of meditation or writing, journaling, anything that's kind of going to give you that free flow of inspiration and wisdom. And where is that coming from? And it's usually coming from your higher self. Most people will say, oh, look, I wrote this whole thing and that couldn't have came from me, so it must be my guides. But it's usually you, it's usually your higher self, and you just don't know how powerful you are. But if you can get into that habit and that practice, then at some point you will connect with your guides and helpers. And that's what happened with Red Feather, where I wasn't looking, I wasn't asking for who is my guide or any of that. Same with Michael, same with all the other ones that I've built a relationship with in my time. But that one with Red Feather was quite significant because it came as a vision. It gave, I was in meditation and all I could see was children's hands digging in what looked like earth, and I couldn't work out what am I seeing, and I kept thinking red earth, red clay, red earth, red clay, and this kept going round and round in my mind. And anyway, as I came out of my meditation, I could see a red feather, and I was like, that was the strangest thing. But I never put it together. I never thought, oh, that must have been a guide, but it stayed with me. And then when I researched red clay, red earth, up came the sacred ground of the Cherokees. And then Red Feather was the chief. And I was like, this is so strange. And then when I started to research more information that I got through meditation, it gave me confirmation after confirmation that what I was feeling was a guide or a helper from the spirit side. So they will give you the information when the time is right for you. But first, you have to understand where your connection lies. And the only way you can do that is by understanding yourself as a higher spirit.
Right. When I'm listening to you and I'm thinking of, I have a 16-year-old and a 19-year-old daughter, and I know I work with children here in schools, and that's a big passion of mine, is teaching them how powerful they are before they have been dumbed down to feel like they are just
Hmm.
programmed, right? But do you get a sense that the children are coming in now with these higher like levels of consciousness and like more open to that than we were when we like is there a do you see that as this level of ascension? Can you explain that? Because I really do, and I feel like I've interviewed people, and it's just so exciting to see these little children coming into the world and what they're going to do with this their
Hmm.
life.
Yeah, I do see that. I do see that it's very different now. And partly, I think it's to do with there being more awareness. And obviously, back, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, there was no talk of this. You never got to be spiritual. You never, like, you were just seen as that's a strange thing to do. So I think that more, and I'm not saying that with everyone, certainly in the part of the world I come from, Scotland, is very reserved and, just very like, do what you do, tradition, don't step out of that kind of thing. Whereas now, in the world, all over, the world's a small place because of the internet, because everyone can connect, because of social media. So there's so much more awareness there. But I agree with you in that even young children, 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, they do seem to be more connected, just more connected to their own self, their own spirit. They're more inquisitive, they're asking more questions. And I know that as they grow up, that's fine because, like I say, they've got access to many different things and there's awareness. But I agree that inherently it seems like they're coming with more, maybe than children did all those years ago. And I know that some children did, but most didn't, in that sense, didn't talk about it, didn't ask the questions. But definitely in the younger generation now, I'm seeing a difference.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you should see when I give them, I love the word imagination because I feel like some people think of it as it's make believe or I'm just making it up. But I think the more you practice, for me, the automatic writing or just my trying to connect and not and believing that it is it's not imagination. Well, imagination is so powerful, but when I see these children and they're creating something on a piece of paper and they're telling me what it is, and I'm like, they're talking about aliens and these others, I'm like, what? And it's just so they're so beyond. And then I feel like I mean, I can see it sticking longer now. I feel like whatever we're going through in this planetary shift, that the children are hopefully the veil is thinning and they're going to get to be see the power that they have in them and not lose it.
Hmm.
And when you see whatever they're creating in this artwork or whatever they're doing in their minds, it is so beyond, like beyond when my girls were, in school even. Like it's so fast.
I think that there's also a link to, again, I think it's the same the world over right now, but definitely from where I am, people are saying, oh, there's so much like neurodivergent children and they think a different way, or, there's a spectrum of this and, they're on the spectrum of this and that. And there's so much talk about that kind of thing. But I also wonder if, well, this is meant, like there's got to be something in that where their brains work differently than ours did. So it's almost like they're accessing a different part. Now we all know that accessing the third eye, for instance, is connecting to spirit, right? So that is the connection. So I'm wondering whether the generations that are coming up have the access there where we didn't. And this is what makes, or not, shouldn't say we didn't, but less children did. And I think that maybe that's supposed to happen. And people are talking about, why is this like that now? Well, that's evolution. Do you know what I mean? Everybody evolves, and as a humankind are evolving as well. So I do think that things are meant in that sense, and that things will open up because of that.
Right. When you work psychically with people, and, I realize too, when I've learned from psychics that, you're not predicting the future, but it's a potential. Will you explain the difference there?
Yeah, I think again, a misconception is this a medium will know or a psychic will predict the future. Now, that comes from in the past, and maybe even still now, some psychics have premonition and they can tell things that are coming up. So that's where people think you're going to predict everything. Whereas I always see it as a potential because we can make the change. So if I said to someone, what I see for you is like X, Y, and Z, and by this time frame, then that's fine. I maybe see that and that is there for that person. But if they make a different choice or turn a different corner, then that's not going to happen. So for me, there's no certainty in that. Whereas I would rather say, I know that there's a potential for X, Y, and Z to happen. Now, as a medium, I might feel that's definitely going to happen, but I'm also not allowed to influence someone's life. So it's not like I've had many, many clients that will come and they want answers. They want to know what's happening in their life, if something's going to turn out, if that relationship's the right relationship and such like. And I know why, because we all need guidance and we all want that answer that we need. And so I can pick up very clearly, no, that's not the right path for you, or definitely this is going to happen. You're going to get a job, or you're going to move to America or Australia. I can get these things, and they're kind of set on that person's path, but that person can change the outcome of that. So that's why I would call it a potential for things to happen rather than a prediction. Does that mean I can't pick up things that are definitely going to happen? No, because I can pick up pregnancies. I can say, oh, there's definitely going to be a child here by November, or there's definitely, I can definitely tell you that there's a house move by 2026 in October. I can definitely pick things up like that. But usually I will say it's a potential for that to happen, but you need to make the decision.
Right. And so that brings to timelines. So in my learning, my mind expansion is understanding that every timeline exists, right? Everything, there's all these potentials. It's where if you're at the, so my, everyone's listening knows if they listen to this all the time, they know I want this healing center, like I'm manifesting it. I know it already exists. I just need to get to the frequency of this healing center that I'm calling Soul Haven that I'm going to create in San Diego. Like I know it's going to be there. I just need to get on that frequency. But there's all these other potentials. And what I'm doing now is at this potential, as at where my frequency is at in this timeline. How do you explain that?
Well, I completely agree with you. And there are the potentials and the different frequencies and things, and that's a good way to explain it. And I do believe that divine timing is everything. So I do believe that all we can do is be in the here and now and live in the here and now and take the choices and the pathways that we are willing to take at that point and that we are guided towards, and always trying to listen to our inner soul, because sometimes what we do is go against that because the ego wants something different, or somebody will try to influence you and you'll pull away from what you really felt inside, and then that takes you on a different path. But if we can try to listen to what's inside of us, then usually we're going to stay on the right path. Now, if we can then make these choices in the here and now, I believe it takes us to the right frequency to get us where we feel that we are going. And I also do believe that you're going to have that center, and I do believe that you absolutely are going to reach that. I can feel that when you're talking about it. So I feel like you exactly know from your higher self where you're going, but you're just in the moment, in the here and now, getting to that frequency, like you said.
Yeah, every day I do something toward that. And I use Chat GPT sometimes, and I'm asking, like today they made a menu for my Soul Haven place, and it was like so amazing. But it helps me get into that frequency of that it's already happened, and I have it, and people are coming, and I feel like even when I'm parenting the girls and they want to do something, it's like getting into that understanding that whatever you can create in your mind and act as if it's happening, or, put in Chat GPT and see the menu of services, and that, which is what I did today, and see what comes up. And it's just like, I feel like, okay, if I'm going to live that way, I'm going to do something. I'm going to take the breadcrumbs to get to that timeline. And I'm on a mission.
Hmm.
Right? So when you have this desire, and manifesting and all the, law of attraction and all the words people use. But, when you have that desire, do you feel like that desire comes from like an imprint of something that from a past life, or something that my soul in that diamond is doing? So it came and it said, okay, Ashley, that's going to be what you want to do. That's going to something's planting a seed in me to want to do that because it's happening now somewhere else.
I know, I feel like it's more, I mean, that could be right where it is, it can be happening in a different timeline, because as we've said, there's many different emanations and we're never going to know that. But my feeling on that is always, if you're feeling it within your soul, and if it's really truly within your soul, you will make it happen. It'll be your path. But I think that sometimes we can get mixed up with, people think they can manifest anything, like, oh, I definitely want to be a millionaire. I'm going to manifest it. Now, that's not to say they can't. Absolutely not. If they've got the desire to do that and go forward and do it, then that's great that that happens. But I often think that sometimes the ego comes in and we get mixed up, and that's where there's cross wires. If you are trying to manifest something or connect with something that you know is good for your soul and something that comes from your very soul, I absolutely believe you get there. I absolutely believe that you will be guided and that the opportunities will be put in front of you to get you there because it's meant. if you're trying to manifest something because you just want it, I would love a big house on the lake and that's what I'm going to have. You're still going to be able to achieve that, but you're going to be able to achieve it by other means. I don't think that necessarily comes from the soul. So I think that there's two different ways of looking at it. But like for your center that you're talking about, that is of your soul. So that is going to happen. So I think if you can sit with that, anyone who's listening who feels like they really want something, sit with it and see, is it of my soul? Is this something that's needed for my own soul? And if it is, you will get there, you will be guided. And it's proved all the time to me because there's times like even today I was sitting and I was like, right, I'm meant to be writing a book and I've done parts of it and not other parts, and life gets in the way and we know how that goes. And today I was sitting just in my spirit room and I was like, right, I must get back to this book, I must get back to that. And I picked up my phone 10 minutes later and I had an email from someone asking me about a course for writing a book and all the rest of it. And I'm like, okay, I'm hearing you. So you're going to get your messages and your guidance from spirit at the same time. It's just about believing it and listening to it and listening to your own self.
Right. Oh, and I'm so in tune to I'm so aware and I mean I talk about my girls all the time, but as a mom because I'm very much into that and have been for the last 19 years and in opening their eyes to the signs and to, it's constantly a butterfly or a song that comes on and it's these confirmations that when you're aware of that it just is like, oh, okay, we're on the right path. Yes, that's thank you. Thank you more, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm,
I mean, the vocabulary we use in this house is really funny because, anything we say in our words, it's like we're magic wands, right? Like we are powerful to the
mhm,
beyond that.
mhm.
Give me like some, like, when you've had these readings and anything that you've learned that kind of from being a medium from spirit that went kind of changed even the trajectory of where you were going in your life. Have you gotten like these monumental messages?
Yeah, I mean, there's been many, I suppose, over the years, but I know that one big one that stood out to me was I was just like doing my work and my mum at the time, she was unwell and she had cancer and she passed over to spirit. And I remember speaking to my mum before she passed away and she said, oh, things will happen for you. And my mum was always like, um, she believed in it. She always believed in spirit and believed in psychic, but I don't know that she wanted me to do it. I felt like she was worried that it was a scary thing or what about evil spirits and all that. And I think she got a little bit frightened of it. Later, she did see me work and she was like, oh, okay, and she settled with it. But before she passed away, her and I had a conversation about, I don't know where it's going. I'm just doing my work. And that's still the way I feel. I just get up every day and I do the work. And wherever that takes me, it will take me. So she passed away. And before the night before she passed away, she said to my sisters gave her a hug each, and she said, be good. And then when I gave her a hug, she said, be good or be known. And I was like, that was a strange thing. And both my sisters said, that was strange, like where did that come from? And but she was in and out of consciousness at that point. Anyway, she passed away, and that's the way it happened. About 6 months later, a lady messaged me for a reading, and she was from the United States, and I was like, yeah, that's fine, and it was on Zoom or Skype at the time actually. And
Mhm.
I'd done a reading, and then her name was Anne, and her sister's name was Kathy. My mum was Kathy, her sister was Anne, and it just seemed really strange. And there just seemed to be such a strong connection. Anyway, she booked in again a couple of months later, and she said, I need to speak to you again. I've got people here that want to talk to you. I've got connections. I've got this and that. And really, that's the way my work started to really go a bit more worldwide at that point.
Huh.
And I remember feeling like, this is mum. This is mum. Like this is huge for me. And it's because I mean, I'm just from a little tiny town in Scotland, how I wasn't putting myself out there. It all happened and I feel like it was meant. And I've had many connections through that now, many opportunities like this one where it's just grown so much and my work's grown so much. So I do feel like some things are written and some things change trajectories of your life. And it's not really something you're doing or not doing, it's something that's maybe meant for you. but you have to be present within your life to get there. So I liked what you said about the girls and saying thank you for the signs, because I really truly believe that if you live in gratitude and if you keep saying thank you for that when you see things, I believe more comes your way. I truly, truly believe that.
Oh, me too. So much. What was just coming into my mind was, okay, so here Karen is in this body, this little fractal of her, and what you're doing in your life now as a medium and a psychic, and and growing and you know blossoming is knowing that's your purpose. So you pass away. This Karen, is done on this timeline. Is another fractal of you pursuing something similar? Is our soul like, if I'm like, are you going to be a doctor in another, like, is your soul connected to similar interests and different lifetimes that are happening at the same time? Are you, because when I've done past life regressions, everything is so connected. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no wonder I love children. I've always been a teacher. No wonder I love healing. I'm so into like the healing modalities that are coming back to understanding that we can heal ourselves. So I've always been
Mhm.
into that, but I've seen past lives in that. Is that something that you believe, that you have that gift in other things and you've used it in other
Yeah.
timelines?
Yeah, I think so. I think it can absolutely be that. But I can't say it only has to be that. I think that it can, but likewise, I think that we could maybe live completely different lives in other realms, in other timelines. So I wouldn't say it's like one rule and that's the way it is. But if you have done that and if you feel that, then I feel that you should connect with that. I think that the different aspects to different parts of your spirit incarnating here, there's many different things to learn. So it might not be it's just that one thing or that ability they're following. It could be like a completely different life, something completely different to evolve that part of your spirit. So it's quite complicated. I sometimes think about it like if you're on Zoom and there's maybe 50 people on the Zoom call and it's lots of little thumbnail windows of everybody. I kind of feel like that's what it's like. Like there's maybe 50 of you on this, all different thumbnails of different parts of lives that you've lived or that you're going to live or that you're living right now. So it can be quite complicated, I feel. And I think that's why I always say to people, live in the here and now. This is your incarnation. My incarnation right now is Karen. I don't want to be too concerned with what was before or what's coming up. I want to make sure that whilst I'm here, I'm living the life that I was meant to live while I was here and trying to embrace it as much as I possibly can. Because when I go back home, I'm going to learn the rest. I'm going to know where I was, what was my purpose, where I'm going next. That's all going to come. But for now, while we've got this very short time on the earth, because it's very, very short, embrace it, enjoy it, evolve yourself, push yourself where you know that your gut instinct, your psychic intuition, whatever you want to call it, is taking you, because that's the higher self speaking to you.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm so in the here and now. I'm so in the moment, in the present moment all the time. That's a definite muscle that I've created to be. And it just creates the gratitude. It creates more magic. It creates more connection. It creates more realizing that, oh, the path that I'm on, it's like like a light bulb, like it keeps lighting up all those little breadcrumbs. And as you keep
Hmm.
picking them up, and then you see the more magic, and then you are still in the moment. But I just, it's like understanding that. And for me, like what I do, and I have retreats um, in San Diego, and I love bringing the magic so people can see that, and then working with the children, but understanding that all we have is right now, and this is it, and to understand that you can look at it can be um, this A or B, like you have it's all choices.
Hmm.
And what the words you speak is your reality. I mean, we're creating our entire life. Like everything outside of us is mirroring what's inside of us, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why when you meet people as well, people talk about being shown things. When you meet people, it's a reflection for you. It's so that you can look in that mirror and say, oh, that's what I recognize about myself. I need to change that, or I do better, or I feel fine with that, or whatever it might be. But I think that it's always to show you the road. It's always to show you the next path. It's always to say, hey, you maybe not noticed this, but maybe if you look at this part of yourself, that will then take you to the next part. And I think it's a continuous thing. And unfortunately, sometimes people don't want to look in that reflection and they just want to stay where they are. And it's not even like a conscious choice of, oh, I don't want to move on or I don't want to evolve. It's just that they might not know or might not have felt that part of their spirit move and understand it. And that's why podcasts like this are important because you're spreading the knowledge, you're putting the knowledge out there that, yeah, everyone is the same, everyone has power, everyone has that energy. And maybe some people are more fortunate than others. They've maybe had a different upbringing or different conditioning where they do realize, like your girls will always know, this is the way to be and this is what you evolve your soul with. But somebody else that's maybe not being conditioned like that or brought up like that would never know. So getting the knowledge out there and the information out there is so important. And that's thanks to people like you who are having these podcasts and inviting guests on to talk about it.
Yeah, it's definitely a passion of mine. I love it so much. As we end here, tell people, well, first of all, you're writing a book. Like, let's tell me where the next breadcrumbs are, what breadcrumbs you're picking up next on your path.
So, yep, I am writing the book. I was never a writer and I didn't even know where to start, but one day I just decided this is what I feel is needed and this is where I feel like this part of my soul is going with this. So I follow that. So I'm writing the book. So hopefully by next year I'm a bit more organized with that. And just really to help people, the book's really to help people understand the spirit and the work and everything that goes into it. And apart from that, I'm teaching, I'm mentoring people, and doing mentorship programs so that people have a one-to-one link so that they're not on their own with it. Because I know that in my early days it was tough going, not really having someone to ask questions of. And yes, we can Google things and get information now, which is great, but there's a lot of misinformation out there as well. So it's good to have someone actually to speak to about it that's lived that and experienced that as well, and who wants to share that. So mentoring for me is important and teaching for me. And apart from that, doing the readings, doing the demonstrations of mediumship, doing the gallery readings, all of these things I love. And hopefully get to do a little bit more travel with it. I'm sure I will. And that's the way I'm going.
Oh, I love it. Oh, it's been so fun to meet you. Thank you for coming in late night.
Oh,
You're,
that is my pleasure. I love talking about it, and the time goes by so, so quickly.
I
It
know.
really does.
I know. I love it. Tell people your website, all the things, and how they can find you.
So the website's the main area. I know that there's social media is Karen Docherty, Medium and Mentor, but my website is where you'll get the links to that anyway, and that is karendocherty.com. So it's Docherty, karendocherty.com.
Thank you. I've
Thank
loved
you.
it.